Hey everybody, it's Sarah here with your live chats, and tonight I'm going to be talking about how to train for a big ass mountain when you live somewhere flat, because I know that's a lot of people in this group. We have folks from Texas, folks from Indiana, I've seen folks from Ohio, and just all over the country and in other countries who are trying to get ready for a big mountaineering trip or a big backpacking trip, and they have to do it without a mountain. And is there a way to do it? Hey Rachel, is there a way to do it? Absolutely. And I know because I've done it. I'm going to share my story with you tonight, and I'll also give you my top 3 tips for training, the modifications that you want to make whenever you are training below sea level or just somewhere where it's really flat. So if you're new to the group, just a quick intro to me. I'm Sarah Maurer. I'm a fitness coach that specializes in helping mountaineers and backpackers get in the best shape of their lives for their goals, their big peaks, their big backpacking trips. Welcome to my group. This is one of the most exciting things I do as a coach, so I'm so glad you're here. If you're not a member, definitely hit the button up there and join our group. It's a blast. It's a lot of fun. So, a little bit about my story. I trained, this was a few years ago. I was living in Bangkok, and my friend who lives in Houston, another super flat place below sea level, she calls me up and she wants to know if I want to climb Kilimanjaro in about 6 months. Hey, Stuart. Oh my gosh, Stuart, did you just climb Rainier? I think I saw your post right before I came on. Congratulations, that's so awesome. I'm really looking forward. Stuart just put up a post, and I think he has a blog about climbing Rainier, by the way, so definitely check that out. But anyway, back to my story. Hey, Pam. Pam, I'm wearing your bandana. You guys, Pam sent me a bandana. It's a Rosie the Riveter bandana. I know I don't have as big as muscles as Rosie, but it's really cool, and that was very sweet of you. Thank you. So back to my story. Climbing Kilimanjaro and training in Bangkok. I had about 6 months to do it, and the way I did it was mostly by climbing. I lived in a high-rise building at the time, which was super helpful. So I could put on my pack, put on some, we didn't have podcasts back then, but I would put on like a movie and just listen to the audio or a TV show. And I would just march up the stairs as far as I think it was like 18 stories in the building, and then come back down in the elevator and then do it again and I would literally do this for hours, and it was really boring. It was really hot because it's Bangkok, right? It's really hot anyway, and there's no air conditioning in the stairwell, so I was just a sweaty mess the whole time. It was really uncomfortable. I would drink like a gallon of water while I was doing it, and then like the building was under construction, so the top few floors of the building weren't even lit. There was no lights on. It was totally dark, so I had to take my headlamp so I didn't trip when I was up there, and then I had to come down those stairs on foot to get to a floor where the elevator was operating. And then I think I've written about this a few times on the site also up there, because there was no one really living or up there, and they weren't really working up there even at the time. Some bats had moved in, so you could, as you were getting into this dark part of the stair climb, you could kind of smell the poop, and sometimes you could hear them. They make like little chirping noises, and you're like, they're up there. I hope one doesn't like fly and hit me in my face and get caught in my hair. They wouldn't get caught in my hair if I had my awesome bandana, but so it was just a miserable slog, and every weekend I would do it for hours and hours, and just, you know, that's what it took to climb, to train for Kilimanjaro whenever I was living below sea level. And I did have a few opportunities to go out and do some training hikes, like in northern Thailand, but obviously that's about 4 or 5 hours away to get to the mountains. It wasn't feasible every single weekend. And did this work? You know, it probably didn't work as well as training in Colorado, but I did summit Kilimanjaro. I did get altitude sickness, but I think that had something more to do with us going up too fast rather than taking our time and just being really smart about the altitude. And my friend that trained in Houston did something similar, and she did very well too. So can you do it? Absolutely. One thing I would have done different, and this is going to kind of lead into my top 3 tips, is you just have to have, I think, whenever you're training for a big climb at sea level, I think you just have to have a special kind of hunger. You have to really want it, because let me tell you, it is boring. You really have to just have ways to keep yourself motivated, and you kind of have to have a bit of a tolerance for boredom. I think the people that don't, they give up and they don't go. So one of the things I probably would have done differently is joined a gym. They do have gyms in Bangkok. I'm not quite sure why I was so averse to joining one. I think just having access to things like a Stairmaster and having some variety and having maybe some people around would have been very helpful for me during this process. So how do you do it? Speaking of Stairmasters, step 1, I'll tell you some of the exercises that you can use that I think are probably the most helpful whenever you are getting ready to climb and you're at sea level. You really want to focus on sport specific, like for your long hikes, especially in your longer training sessions. You want to focus on sport specific exercises. So things that are going to kind of mimic climbing up a mountain. So basically, you're going to want exercises where you're either stepping up or walking uphill. So how do you do that at sea level? A couple of things that work really well. Climbing stairs, obviously, is an excellent one. There's people like me that +1 for Stairmaster, says to Stuart. Yes. So climbing stairs, yeah, it's just amazing, like how people train, and they really do succeed using just simple stair climbing techniques. So whether that's climbing up the stairs in the building, going to the gym and hopping on the Stairmaster, they both work really well. You can, if your gym will allow you, you can do both for a couple of hours. So that's one option for you. Another option, if there's a ramp, in near where my parents live in Ohio, there's a parking garage with long slippy ramps, and I'm always looking at it going, I can run up that. I haven't actually done it yet, but that might be an option for me to train when I'm home. So stadiums are another good one. I know here in Denver, obviously, we have lots of mountains, but on days when you can't go to the mountains, a lot of people go to the Red Rocks Amphitheater and just run up and down the stairs or run up and down the benches. There's all kinds of great workouts you can do. If you are in a place with hills and they're small, that's okay. Just go out and get on some hilly terrain and go for a few hours. Make sure you're going up and down. You're probably going to get some pretty good elevation gain. It might be the equivalent of hiking for hours up one big mountain like we do here in Colorado and then coming down. There's nothing wrong with breaking it up. You're still working your muscles. You're still working your cardio, and you actually might have an advantage over someone that's going up for a long time and very sustained, because then when we turn around and come down, we don't, our heart rate goes down and we don't have some of the same cardio benefits. So definitely consider hilly terrain. And then if you're just a last-ditch effort, this is for no matter where you're training. If you just cannot get out, there's an exercise called the step up. You've probably heard of it, where you just basically step up onto a box or a bench with one foot, step down, step up with the other foot, step down. It's really exciting. You're gonna wanna watch like some Netflix while you do this, because it's gonna be boring if you do it for a few hours. But just have a step-up marathon if all else fails. That's totally fine. Put on some Game of Thrones or whatever you like and just go for it. You can even, if you know how high you step, you can actually figure out the elevation. If you have like a clicker and you can count your steps. If you do that for a few hours, it might get boring, but for some of your step-up workouts, it might work really well. So definitely something to consider. One other one I forgot to mention, if you're looking for hills to run repeats on, this is a story I love. There's a guy that, I wish I could remember his name, it's failing me right now, but he was king of the mountain. So that's the person in the Tour de France that wins the mountain stage. So this guy, he was from North Dakota, and he was king of the mountain for like 5 or 6 years in a row. He didn't win the Tour de France, but he won the mountain stage after training in North Dakota. So how did he do it? He would ride his bike up and down over an overpass near his house. So overpasses, bridges, any sort of man-made structures, these are also great things that you can run on and do some of your hill training and your longer workouts on. So hopefully there's some ideas for you. So those are kind of what you do for the exercises. And then how do you, what's the word? How do you get a long workout in without dying of boredom? So my number one advice, and I've kind of experimented with this and I think it works pretty well. So you should have like one long workout a week that's sports specific. It's the stepping up, you know, running uphill, hiking on hills. If you really are struggling, it should be about 30% of your total training time. So it should be pretty long and getting longer every week. Every few weeks you can kind of take a break, but then start ramping back up. If that workout is just killer to do, like going upstairs in your building or on the Stairmaster, you're like crying, you're so bored, you're losing all your motivation, just break it up. Make it 2 medium length workouts. They'll still be pretty long. If for a little extra bang for your buck, you can put them back to back days, but you don't have to. It's totally okay to break that time up. And just as long as you're getting your training volume in for the week, that's great. If you can, at some point, get out and do a long training hike, I think that's good psychologically, just to get your brain used to working for longer. But for your body, 2 shorter workouts, you're gonna be just fine. So don't be afraid to do that. If you're just really, really bored off your gourd and out of your mind, it's totally okay. One thing I can recommend if you're looking for how to kind of break up your week, hey Louise, I do have a free product and a paid product. It's so the paid product is a Mount Rainier training plan, and it actually breaks it up for people who are training in the mountains, and then also it has a special workout for people who are training on the flatlands, because I feel like you just have different needs. You sometimes need to break it up into shorter workouts. So if you want to see how that builds up over, I think it's a 4-month plan if you get the paid product. Definitely check that out. And you can also get the first couple of weeks free if you go to my website, and I'll try to drop a link. Remember to drop a link down below. You can kind of just get that and see how I break the workouts up differently for people who are training on the flatlands versus in the mountains, because I do think it makes a difference. So that's tip number 2, break up your workout. Number 3, what is number 3? So number 3, getting back to what I was talking about in the beginning, stay hungry. You're gonna have to just have more, I'm sorry to tell you, if you're training at sea level, you just are gonna have to have more motivation than someone who is maybe training in Colorado and they get to go climb beautiful mountains every weekend and it's gorgeous and birds are singing, and it is a different deal. It is harder. So a good way to think of it is extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation. So all of us, I think if you're into like long backpacking trips or mountaineering, you have some intrinsic motivation. You're doing this because you love it. You're doing this because you're really hungry for your goal. You want to climb this mountain. You want to hike this hike. But no one on earth can do intrinsic motivation, or I cannot speak tonight. No one on earth can do intrinsic motivation 100% of the time. We're just not wired that way as humans. So think about adding some extrinsic motivation. So that is motivation that comes from outside of you. And I know when I was training for Killy, for me, that was my friend that was climbing with me. She's in Houston, I'm in Bangkok, but you know, we could Skype each other and, you know, just talk about how boring and terrible it is to train in these flat places and kind of share our struggles and, you know, talk about how awesome it's going to be in Kilimanjaro and all the new gear we're buying. And I mean, that was so much fun. And it was something we hadn't like hung out that much in the past few years, that it was like just having her there to talk to and complain to and get excited with was so important. So if you do have a buddy that you can train with, I think that is enormous. Or if you have a buddy that's training at the same time, even if they're not going on the same trip as you. So I think that's where this group, like kind of my vision when I was putting this group together, I was like, there's so many people that are just kind of training by themselves that need, you know, the community and the support and the motivation. So please use this group for that as well. You know, come in, talk about what you're doing well, what you're struggling with, how you're feeling. And I think the people here, a lot of us have been through this whole training at sea level or on the flatlands thing, and we will try to lift you up and do our best to help you out. Rewards, I think, is a really good one too. you can actually set a goal. Obviously, you have a huge goal, which is the climb or the hike, but you know, make little goals too. And it might look something like, okay, if I hit all my workouts for the next 3 weeks, week 4 is my rest week, and maybe I'm just gonna take it and go to the beach and relax. I know I did that once in Thailand, and it was great. I didn't really work out that much other than jogging on the beach a little. I didn't do any stairs, no bats, no poop, no anything. It was fantastic. And you can actually make them bigger. So maybe the first one is a little bit smaller. You're gonna buy some new cool piece of gear you've been wanting, and then they get bigger and bigger as you kind of progress towards your goal. And maybe the one right before the goal climb is pretty big. But yeah, getting yourself a tangible reward. I think it's really awesome, and just kind of making a deal with yourself. Or you can have an accountability buddy that's, you know, watching you and, you know, cheering you towards getting your award. I think that's a lot of fun, even if it's a great way to get people in your life who aren't climbing involved. So yeah, those are actually my big 3 tips. So, you know, sport-specific activities, stepping up, walking uphill and downhill is number 1. Number 2, definitely break your long workouts. You know, try to do your long workouts, but if you're really struggling, go ahead and break them up. And number 3, makes you set up some extrinsic motivation, because you're gonna have to just stay hungry. You're gonna have to be tougher in your mind. You're gonna have to work harder. But you know what? It's gonna be, think about it, like that much sweeter when you actually do get there. I know for me, like standing on top of Kilimanjaro, I'm like, oh my God, I probably spent like 300 hours of my life, like walking upstairs in bat poop to get here, and it's so beautiful and just so sweet when that moment finally happens. And I think it's a different feeling than someone that trained in Colorado that's like, oh, you know, it's another mountain. So anyway, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and pop them, or if you have experiences or tips, go ahead and pop down in the comments. I honestly can't stay on too much longer because my phone is about to die, but I'll hang out for a couple of minutes. You guys, I'm really hoping this backdrop will change in the next couple of weeks. You're probably really tired of looking at my under construction apartment. Let me just check here. I can't always see. So Stuart says, biggest takeaway from training for Rainier, make sure you always train with weights. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you mentioned that. So you did it with the first training hike I did with a full 40-pound pack was a big shock. And just mental fortitude necessary to slog out the long, long hike to the top. So on all these things that I mentioned above, definitely train with the pack weight that you can work up to the weight you will actually carry on your climb. And if you're able, even go a little bit heavier, sometimes is a nice psychological advantage. So yes, Stuart, thank you for mentioning that. And I think, Stuart, I think you were training in the Pacific Northwest, so you're training in the mountains, but you know, even the people training in the mountains need to develop that mental fortitude. So that is such a great comment. It's a slog. It's not easy for anyone, is it? Okay. Well, guys, my phone is about to die, so I am actually going to cut our chat just a hair short for tonight. I need to actually make it through one more live on like 20% battery over on my Facebook page. So thank you for stopping by. It's always just such a pleasure to chat with you. Definitely hop in the group if you have any questions. Oh, you're welcome. You can also leave questions below the video and I will catch you over there. Okay? Take care.